Now, the President Trump has said that the United States will run Venezuela. He has removed the head of the regime, Nicolas Maduro, as we've seen, just come down that plane and now, will be facing these charges. But President Trump has decided to keep the rest of the regime intact in Caracas. Why?
Well, first, Joanna, Fauzia, thanks for having me on. Look, I think that the president wanted to have a limited military operation. This was under the pretense, the removal of Nicolas Maduro was due to the pretense of him being the leader of the Cartel de los Soles, a criminal organization. He was extradited to New York City to face criminal charges in U.S. courts as the leader of Cartel de los Soles. And so that designation as the leader of a criminal narco-trafficking group was the basis by which the U.S. Conducted the operation to remove Maduro, and thereby that's why the operation was limited to Maduro himself rather than others across the regime.
Now, the details of running Venezuela, as President Trump says the U.S. will do so, the details of that are scant at the moment. All he did was point to his Secretary of State, who was standing behind him, Marco Rubio. We still don't know what that's going to look like. Are you able perhaps to maybe sketch out for us what it may look like? What could be the different scenarios?
Well, there are a lot of different scenarios. The president was very careful today to not reveal additional thinking behind what running the country means. Now, a couple of things of what it doesn't mean is this is not a U.S. president like George Bush in Iraq that wants to come in with massive U.S. forces and actually run the government from a day-to-day operational standpoint. We see this from the operation in Venezuela last night. We see this from previous U.S. operations under the Trump presidency, that this president prefers limited U.S. military action to try to achieve objectives. Now, insofar as running the country, there is a whole host of different things that need to happen to run a country, as you know, everything from security to education to water to energy, et cetera. Now, Trump has only referred to the fact that the U.S. will help to get the oil fields running again, and that the U.S. will provide security to ensure those oil fields operate. Now, insofar as the other operations of running a country, there is still not an answer insofar as the degree to which the U.S. will be involved and how the U.S. would be involved as well, especially when there is a reluctance to put U.S. military forces in direct harm's way.
What do you think is the current perception or the current reaction within Venezuela at the moment? We know that Nicolas Maduro ran a very harsh regime. We knew that there had been disappearances. We know that the paramilitary had weeded out his enemies within the society, but he also had supporters as well. So how would Venezuela be perceiving the events overnight?
Yeah, well, talking to Venezuela, I'll say there's a lot of jubilation, of course, in regard to the possibility that today is the beginning of a new era for Venezuela. Today is, frankly, probably the most consequential day in Venezuela's recent history, if not its history in general since independence. And so there's a lot of jubilation. There's also a fear of what might come next when there is such a abrupt disruption in power. And I think that fear is also preventing some people from going out on the streets and expressing their enthusiasm. Yes, Maduro did have a core base of support, but he retained that base of support through payoffs. And those payoffs were going to be increasingly difficult when the economy was continuing to decline. And at the same time, when the U.S. began a blockade of sanctioned vessels that were helping, a shadow fleet of vessels that were helping to transport oil in and out of Venezuela.
You say that some may think that this is the beginning of a new era for Venezuela with the removal of Nicolas Maduro. I wonder whether it's also perhaps a beginning of a new era for the continent itself. How do you think other South American nations are viewing this?
Well, I think it really depends on the nation, right? And I think we've seen words of support from President Javier Milei in Argentina, for example, President Mulino in Panama and others. But then, of course, leaders who the U.S. is at odds with, like Gustavo Petro in Colombia, were quick to condemn the U.S. actions. Lula in Brazil questioned the U.S. ability to violate another country's territorial sovereignty. And so there's a mixed reaction across the region, and that just reflects the fact that this is a region in general that is not united around many common stances. As well, with in this year ahead, there are going to be important elections in key countries like Brazil, like Colombia, two countries I just mentioned, and there's a possibility that those new presidents will be much more aligned with the Trump administration on these issues than the current ones.